Okay, it's raining a ton. One of the things that's maybe most amazing about having a YouTube channel is that I get to hear the fears and struggles of millions of people shared anonymously in the comments section, DMs, and there's one single struggle that I hear the most from people of all ages, which is how to make friends as an adult. I relate so hard to this struggle. Almost everyone I know does, everyone I know. And if you relate and you feel badly for it, first, let me say, don't feel bad. It's an epidemic. I was so lonely for so much of my life. I took it on as my identity. I thought, oh, I'm just a lonesome person. I'm just a solitary person. It was so intense. It was part of my identity for a long time, and no longer. I spent a lot of time working through this and found some things that changed my life. The simple truth is that deep connection is really rare. Like true connection, it's rare. The struggle of making friends as an adult, maybe it's your personal struggle right now. Maybe it's a struggle of your friend, your daughter, your brother, whoever it is. I think I've got some really helpful tips for you. Let's kick it. I also got to run some errands. It's raining a lot. I hope the rain isn't making the audio terrible. We'll see.
I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Okay, first and foremost, before you get too down on yourself for feeling lonely or isolated, let me say this. There are logistical reasons why life feels very lonely right now. It could be that you've left college or you've left a school or work environment where there's a shared environment. Having a shared environment to relate to people over, to connect over, it's one of the most important ways that we form relationships. And at certain points in our life, we lose that. We're working from home, we move to a new city. It could also be your life stage. People are coupling up and they're moving to the suburbs and they're insisting on having their children, or maybe you're the one having the children and that changes your schedule and it's really hard to find ways to connect with people or time to spend with people. Maybe you've moved to a new city and you're in a place where everyone there already has the friends they need. You're the only one who's in the market for new friends, and there's this huge mismatch. And in addition to that, there's also just the natural cycle, the inevitable cycle of friendships ebbing and flowing in your life. It's totally natural, but in the meantime, it can feel really, really painful. All of these have happened to me. So whatever your scenario, this is what I want to cover in this video. Some tips of what you can do, things you should definitely be trying, some things you should not be doing, some ways that you are probably hurting yourself, and what you can expect from the endeavor of trying to make friends as an adult. It's a fun one. Here we go. Okay, Justin is out of town right now, so we're gonna go water his plants for him. This is a very proud plant daddy. Let's go water his plants.
What's the angle? I'm not playing that game.
The absolute most important advice I ever got about making friends was from my friend Tessa. I'd moved to DC, I'd moved to a new city, I didn't know anybody, and I was exhausted and deflated from not having connection. And she told me to treat making friends, treat it like a job. Treat it like a job, which means getting like very intentional about it and not just waiting to socialize when you feel like it. You can't afford to do that, because when you're starting out in a new environment trying to make connections, it's very rare that you're gonna feel like it, because you're invited to a party, I don't know any of these people, it's not gonna be that fun. Like, no, it's not gonna be that fun. So I was really doing myself a disservice to wait until I felt like it. It changed everything when I started treating it like a job. It's Friday night, I've had a long week, I'm exhausted. The last thing I wanna do is like go get a dinner with someone I don't know that well, go get a coffee or a drink, or like go to this party where like I'm gonna be weird and I don't know anybody, but I'm gonna go anyway because it's my job right now. I'm not going because it's fun. I'm not going because it's gonna be energizing right now. But like exercising, like eating well, I'm gonna work on this thing, and it's not gonna feel that fun in the immediate, but long term, I'm eventually gonna start seeing the results. When socializing in a new environment, you gotta treat it like a job. You're not doing it because it's fun, you're doing it because it's gonna be good for you, and it'll start being fun later. Okay, now what I actually did to meet people I tried lots of things. I literally had to write them down on a list. Asking people to go on walks, getting a coffee, getting a drink, duh. Joining an adult sports league, the shame. I met my best friend that way, not shameful at all. I joined a kickball league. Later, I joined a softball league, becoming a regular at like a coffee shop or at a bar. The Instagram DMs. I've made multiple friends in the Instagram DMs. Platonic friends. Bumble BFF, yes I have. Accepting that invitation from like a random tertiary acquaintance to go to like a random event or a random party that you don't really have any interest in, accept that invitation because you have no idea what will happen. Start showing up to places. Start showing up and being like, I wonder what's gonna happen. It's kind of fun to just be like, why am I here? I don't really know. I organized a book club. Book club can be a good way to like bring a bunch of disparate people together. Taking a language class, volunteering, going to meetups related to my job or a hobby. I went to tech meetups, design meetups, people of a shared interest. Also, some of the jobs I worked, some of the like side gigs I worked, I made some of my favorite friends there, such as working in the service industry, working in a cafe or serving tables. You can earn some extra cash, and truly like the best way to bond with people is to have a common enemy. And that's why the service industry is really great, I feel like, for making friends, because every customer, every manager is your enemy. If you can put yourself in a situation where you're like in battle against a common enemy, you will bond. But of all these different things that you can try, the very most important, most fruitful ones were the weird ones. This is why you should be doing the weird social things. First of all, it's not weird at all, but those things that a lot of people think like, oh, it'll be awkward, or like, oh, it's embarrassing. It's your life. It's not embarrassing. Do the weird thing. When you show up to the weird thing, it's a self-selecting group of people who are more likely to also be looking to make a friend. So you're getting your chances of meeting somebody way up. When you get onto Bumble BFF, people are there usually for a reason. When you join the adult kickball league, you're taking the whole city and filing it down for people who are also in need of a new connection. You have to be meeting people who are also in the market for a new friend. The absolute hardest time that I had at making new friends was at one point I'd moved to Ohio for my boyfriend at the time, and everybody in the city we were in had like grown up in the city. They still had their friends from kindergarten, from elementary school, from college. Like, people were so nice to me, but they didn't need a new friend. Far and away, this was the worst, hardest time I had at making real friends in my life. And it's because people there weren't in the market for a new friend. And eventually, I started volunteering. I started volunteering for the Junior League. It's a national women's league. It's all across the country. They do great work. And when I showed up to the first day of the Junior League, all these women sat in a circle and we all went around, introduced ourselves, say how we ended up at the Junior League. Every single woman there was like, I just moved here for my boyfriend. I just moved here for my husband. I'm trying to make friends. Every single person there, it was like all of the women in the state of Ohio who had moved there for their boyfriend, who had moved there for their husband, were in that room. And they were all in the market for a new friend. So put yourself in like that weird situation, because chances are the other people who are willing to show up to the weird situation are also really in need of a friend. Otherwise, if you're not really in need of a new friend, you might not push yourself to do the weird thing. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Try it out, honey. Do some laundry and make this bed. But first, let's talk about some ways you're hurting yourself in trying to make friends. One of the ways you are hurting yourself is by writing a limiting narrative about who you are. Oh, but I'm an introvert. Oh, but I'm depressed. Oh, but I'm too anxious to have a good friend group. I'm not a good host. I can't have a party. What is the limiting narrative that you've written about yourself that you may be clinging to as an identity? It's important to be able to name and identify those things for yourself. I am struggling with depression. I am struggling with anxiety. I do struggle with the fact that I'm more introverted. That does make it maybe harder to make friends, but naming them and naming the challenge you're facing is very different than clinging to it as an excuse for why you're just gonna stay isolated. It does make it harder. It has made it harder for me, but you can still overcome it. I'll give you a very personal recent example. Here's a sock with a sanitary pad in it for my sweaty feet. Okay. After like 2 years in DC, I finally had like a couple different friends that I made from all different places, but I was really craving having a friend group dynamic. But I've always felt I'm not good at hosting parties. I'm not good at organizing things. I'm not good at bringing people together. It feels so unnatural. It is not my skill set. I'm the worst host. And this was the limiting narrative that I was clinging to while complaining about the fact that like I didn't have a good friend group. And I had all these girlfriends, throwing sock, I had all these girlfriends. Each of them only knew me. They didn't know each other. And eventually I realized if I want to make this into a friend group, I have to do it. It's on me. Doesn't really matter, like maybe I will be a weird host. Maybe it will be awkward. But if I want to do it, it's up to me. And after like a year of having my friends meet each other at a dinner, at a coffee, on a walk, getting drinks, at a brunch, it started to form into like a friend group. This thing that I was so certain I did not have the talent for. I am not good at it, and I'm not. I'm confirming to you I am not good at it. Still, I could take steps towards it. That was a huge, huge shift for me, and it took me like a long time complaining about, well, I'm not this way, and then also complaining about like not having a friend group until I realized, who are these complaints going to? If I want this thing, I have to make it happen. So whatever way you are limiting yourself and saying, oh, but I'm too introverted to do that. I'm too depressed to do that. I'm too bad of a host to do that. I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to be the best host. You don't have to be the most extroverted. But you can take little steps while accounting for the things you struggle with, the things that are challenging for you, and try to get creative to kind of problem solve it. What is the limiting narrative that you are writing about yourself? It's holding you back. By the way, all of my bedding right now is from Brooklinen. Oh, and they're sponsoring today's video. If you don't know, Brooklinen is a luxury sheets company, although they also make my favorite towels, which I gotta talk about the towels. Justin is obsessed with these towels. It's like better than hotel towels. Recently I was staying in a hotel and I was like, I wish they had Brooklinen towels here. That is literally what happened. I always like getting new bedding because I love design, and your bed is the biggest item in your room and it has the most impact. You just upgrade your bedding. I mean, in addition to being like the softest sheets I've ever bought, the more times I wash them, actually the softer they get, as opposed to sheets that like disintegrate the more you wash them. But in addition to that, I think they have really classic and timeless design styles, and they have a bunch of different colors and patterns, including ones that really fit my preferences. I really like a cream right now in winter because it feels like a little bit warmer, but it still feels crisp and bright. Brooklinen makes high quality home goods that will elevate every part of your space. The Luxe sheet set is Luxe Sateen Sheets, which features a 480 thread count, and it also has like a little bit more of a luminous finish. There's a little bit of like a pearlescence to it. So I like the sateen specifically as opposed to the classic bundle. You can also do the classic bundle, but I like the Luxe because the sateen has a little bit of that shine. And also the Luxe Hardcore is just like really, really soft. It's buttery soft. Also kind of the color of butter, like a home churned butter. And one of the best things about Brooklinen is that you can do all the shopping from your computer, from your phone. They have a really nice, easy to use website, and for each set you can select, you know, over 20 patterns, colors, whatever you need to fit your style. I will have like one per season of the year, except for the towels, which I just have the one set of towels that I can't get over them. I'm giving these towels to as many people as I can. I've never, ever, ever felt towels softer than this or thicker than this. These are the best towels I've ever used. I'm so obsessed with these towels. And I don't like saying I'm obsessed a lot of times with a product because it sounds so dumb. Sounds like an influencer, but this is actually one thing I'm obsessed with. Justin is obsessed with them. I'm giving these towels to everybody. I don't know if I can even capture how plush these are. They're super thick. I think I'm just supposed to talk about the bedding that I like, but I don't care. I can't not talk about the towels. If you want to cozy up your space or you want to get the best possible gift for a loved one this holiday, I would check out Brooklinen. I'm putting my link in the description of this video and you can get 15% off your first order. It's a pretty good deal. If you use the link and then you do a bundle altogether you can get 35% off as opposed to buying everything individually. So very good time to try it out if you've been dying to know what the hype is about. I've worked with a lot of companies. Brooklinen has been one of my favorite sponsors, one of the best to work with, and I want to thank them for sponsoring today's video. Check them out. The next most important learning for me was understanding that you have to try a lot of things and not everything is going to stick. I think one of the biggest hindrances when you're trying to make new friends is like, it gets so exhausting and deflating when you try a bunch of stuff and you still don't have connection. But like, that's the process. It's kind of like going on a bunch of dates. Like, you could go on 20 dates and not find a good connection. But that doesn't mean that the system is broken. It just means it's rare to find connection. And just know that's part of the process. So if you're doing that, you're trying a lot of things and the connection hasn't come yet, you're still doing it correctly. It does just take a lot of trial and error. I think we're gonna go get some flowers for the house at Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is the best flowers. Another thing that you gotta stop doing when trying to make friends as an adult, or really any age, is taking it personally. It's just not personal. This is the deal. Oh, there's a man in that window, okay? The deal is everybody's really busy. Everybody's really busy, and not everyone is in the market for a friendship at the same time. Sometimes people that you really love and think that you would really connect with, they're just not available right then. And it doesn't mean that they don't like you, and it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be friends with you. I've had a lot of instances before where I met someone, I loved them, we're hanging out, but we're not hanging out as much as I would like. And it's like really hurtful, and eventually it becomes clear that like, this isn't gonna be a best friendship. I think it could be, but they're just like, they're not in the market for it right then. It's important, A, not to take it personally, because it's just not about you. Everyone's just trying to live their life. And B, if they still want to hang out, you know, maybe you just hang out once a month, cool. Sometimes, you know, a year later, that friend that I hang out with once a month is now really in the market for a much closer friendship, and then we start hanging out much more frequently. A lot of times these friendships grow over time. So don't take it personally. We've all felt that thing that feels like rejection, and it's really painful, but it's just not personal. And if you like that person and you think there is a real connection, try not to write them off just because they can't be your best friend right now. Enjoy it for whatever it is. There's value to a lot of different levels of friendship, and you never know what it's going to turn into. But most of all, you got to stop beating yourself up. You got to stop taking it to heart. It's going to happen to everybody eventually, and it just doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. All right, here's the other thing that it was really important for me to learn to stop doing. Let's lock the doors, let's lock the doors. Which is clinging to people. Clinging to people who, for whatever reason, need to leave your life right now. It is gonna happen. Sometimes it'll be a specific circumstance, a temporary circumstance that somebody kind of needs to leave your life for a little bit. Maybe they'll come back. Sometimes they won't. It's incredibly painful, and it's really important to let people enter and leave your life freely. I find that clinging to them doesn't actually usually get you anywhere, and it costs you a lot of energy and a lot of pain. And if somebody needs some space, then there's a reason, even if it's a reason that you can't understand, or even if it's really, really painful. Whether you just left college, whether you moved to a new city, whether you're entering a relationship, coming out of a relationship, having kids, not in a new place, whatever it is, people will continually have to leave your life at certain points. It's just a fact of life. And that's why it's important, I think, to keep fostering new friendships. Not so that you're like ready to bail on your current friends at any moment, but because your friends will have to sort of bail on you at times. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're doing something wrong, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. There's also a really natural ebb and flow to even the most close relationships in my life. Even my best friends, sometimes we'll have periods for months we're texting all the time, sometimes we're not texting at all. If you just let it be what it is and like let the energy be what it needs to be, it often comes back. Let people enter and leave your life freely. Put yourself out there, reach out to them, check in, communicate, make sure things are okay and that we're understanding each other as best we can. But it doesn't change the fact that people will continue to leave your life, because that's just what life requires sometimes. And you'll be a lot better off if you aren't desperately clinging and panicking whenever that does happen, because it will happen to everybody. It's an upsetting thing, but it doesn't have to be something that ends your world or something that you really beat yourself up about. I would be remiss if I didn't speak for just a moment about friend breakups. People write in a lot asking about friend breakups. And I will just say this. Going through a friend breakup is truly like one of the most painful things you can go through. I find it painful in a different way from going through a romantic breakup, because like in a lot of romantic relationships, we have this idea probably of exclusivity or maybe of monogamy, if that's your thing. And like, we can only have one. So if I want to try something else, then we do kind of have to stop seeing each other. But with your friends, it's like, if a friend like doesn't want to see me anymore, it feels like, oh, you must really hate me, because we could have a bunch of friends, like we could see each other a little. You really don't want to see me anymore? Wow, that's extreme. It's really easy to start really abusing yourself over it. If you are going through a friend breakup, let me say it's so much more common than you think. I know so many people who have been just emotionally destroyed over a friend breakup. It's so upsetting. Sometimes, yes, you just need space. And sometimes maybe there is something that you want to reflect on from your relationship that you would like to do better next time. Maybe there is a takeaway, you do a little reflection, maybe there is something you want to learn from it, and you don't have to go through a whole path of self-abuse. It's okay to just choose to learn from it. And at the same time, there are also going to be incidents where maybe somebody is just being kind of unfair, ungenerous with you. Maybe somebody is not giving you the chance to talk, or they're not trying to understand where you're coming from, or they're not even giving the option for communication. That's really frustrating. It's happened to me, and you can't force someone to do it. You can't force someone to communicate with you. You can't force someone to see your side. You will sometimes be misunderstood or misinterpreted or not dealt with quite fairly in life. That will happen as well. And most likely, it's probably a mix of both. It's probably a mix of like having something to reflect on personally that you would like to do differently, and this other person maybe not understanding or communicating, or something getting lost in between. It's probably both. And it doesn't have to be an extreme of this is the villain and this is the victim. Life is nuanced and life is heartbreaking. Grieve and mourn as you need to. Talk to people as you need to. Reflect and grow from that as you need to. And know it does happen, and you don't have to like totally obliterate yourself over it. It's heartbreaking, and I wish I could give you a hug if you're going through it.
Future minded, it's not much for peace of mind, my friend. If I quit fighting, tell me what would happen then.
If nothing else, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you. If you're having a hard time like finding connection in your life right now, there is nothing wrong with you. Remember that finding like real substantive connection where you feel known as a person takes time. It just takes a long time. A long time when sometimes it feels like nothing's building. It feels like nothing's happening, nothing's growing. You do a bunch of walks with someone, a bunch of coffee dates, a bunch of hangouts, a bunch of random events, and it's like, it's all kind of awkward, it's all kind of comfortable, none of it's that rewarding, that energizing, and then eventually it is a little bit. It takes a long time to build that foundation. So don't give up, don't feel too deflated. You are setting the foundation for really substantive relationships, And you're building this amazing skill. It's a skill you have to learn to make friends. Remember that not everything is gonna stick. Not everyone's gonna be a match. Stop writing a self-limiting narrative about yourself, about the limitations because of who you are, because of your personality, or some idea you've written about yourself. Stop it. If you want like a little bit of a deeper dive on these topics, the rain is so loud. I hope you can still hear me. If you want a deeper dive, I'll link some of the podcast episodes. We go into like way more personal examples and personal experiences on my podcast, Not For Everyone. We've done whole episodes just on making friends and all that toodle-doo. And we're also just there to be your friends, be a little bit of your big sister or your buddy while you're at home and there's not necessarily somebody to pick up the phone. Basically, I wanted to be the friend that I didn't have for so many years. I want to be that for you. If someone you know is going through a tough time right now, I hope this video could help them. If you're going through a tough time right now, I'm giving you a virtual hug. I have been there. There's nothing wrong with you. It is not your nature. Sometimes it's just your circumstances. And you're gonna get through it. And I'll see you on the other side. Remember to check out Brooklinen. I've got a 15% off link in the description of this video. Cozy up your space or get the perfect gift for a loved one this holiday.